we have looked at the elements of exposure, which are aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. But then you have to work around them and with them to get the amazing pictures. Now, in the previous video, we have talked about the exposure triangle and understanding how you can use the exposure triangle to get amazing photos. For you to use the elements of exposure well and to control them individually, you have to shift from using auto mode. You have to shoot full manual and let the camera not have any control of its settings, and you control the settings. Here we are here so that we can have and reason together as we are able to see how do we take manual mode shooting, what do we have to think about, how do we reason about a set, and all those things to get the best image for your picture. So with me here I have Noni again, and we are going to create a whole shooting scenario with her so that you can be able to see how you reason when shooting on how to control the exposure elements to get their perfect image. To start with, I want to choose the background of where I want to shoot, and I will record this video so that you can be able to see from my camera. Shutter speed at 1/60 at 2.8, and as you can see, this is how it looks like. So I decided to have this as my background. So you can see I like the lighting, I like the bokeh that's forming around. So that's what I have decided. So next, this is what I need to think about. What kind of picture do I want? Do I want a nice bokeh? And of course I do. So to do that, I have to go to my aperture. My aperture has to be a very wide aperture. This lens can allow me to go as wide as 2.8. So I will increase my aperture or reduce my aperture to 2.8. That gives me a very wide aperture to get nice bokeh on the background. I can see that my highlights are a bit too high. So what I will do is that I will look for a way using the shutter speed and the ISO to reduce those highlights. So right now we are at 1/60. So for me to reduce the exposure on the background, I will go to the shutter speed and increase the shutter speed from 1/60 to 1/200. Now, keeping in mind, as you can see, I don't want her face to be so dark. Also, I need to remember that I have room for editing the highlights in the background. Once that is done, my ISO is as low as possible. In this camera, it's at 200. In your camera can be 100. So the first thing you do in a set is make sure that your ISO is at the lowest to start with. You can adjust it later depending on the situation, the lighting situation, but for me it's the lowest at 200. I want it at 2.8 and 1/200 shutter speed. And at that, I think I have the perfect image. So we're going to take some images. So Sharon posed for me, and yeah, Sharon, very nice. Beautiful. So now we have very nice pictures, but we can also decide to add some character to these images, adding some foreground and adding some background. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take some of these plants that we have found in this location, and I'm going to create foreground for them. So what I will do is that I will just put them just above or just in front of my lens like this. And what they will do is that they will create foreground. I can change the color to like a pink color. Sharon. Very nice, very nice. A different pose. And as you can see, you can do as much as possible to get the perfect image. You need to be able to understand and as quick as possible to alter the exposure elements to get the outcome you want. For example, if you have a group photo, you can decide to increase your aperture to around 5.6 or 6.3 so that you can get everybody in focus. But then you also have to alter the shutter speed and the ISO accordingly to get the right exposure. Remember, what is important is to get the right exposure on the subject. And also, don't blow the other elements of your frame. This is just an example of how you can be able to go practice. Go out, take your camera, go out, switch to manual mode, and vary the exposure elements to get the perfect image. Now we are going to continue shooting to get even more pictures in this location, and then we are going to see the outcome. I'm going to show you the outcome at the end of the screen.